It was an historic night on the main line in Pennsylvania. The threes were falling like crazy, and the Villanova fans were loving it. We recap one to remember at the fin. Also, Kevin Willard had something to say about his team's injury situation after the game. We'll let you hear what it was. And a newest member of our Holy Nova family, Lauren Carra, will join us to talk about Villanova's heartbreaking loss in the women's basketball game against Princeton. It's all coming up on this edition of Holy Nova. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Holy Nova. We're part of the Big East Energy Network. I'm Matt Janus, alongside my co-host David White. We'll hear from Lauren Carra coming up in just a little bit. Apologies, a little bit different-looking background. I know it doesn't look great. I understand that. Let's be honest, I don't look great under the best of circumstances anyway, but did a game earlier tonight, so this is a road game for us. Broadcasting Marriott in Norfolk, Virginia, right across the street from Old Dominion. Not a sponsor, but could be. Although, let me tell you, not the world's best hotel and certainly not very good internet service, David. You can attest to that.
You never know what you're going to get. If you were watching Big East beat last night, Matt may or may not have been kidnapped and be in a bunker. So we're just not sure that he's still alive. This could have been pre-recorded. Not sure.
Well, it's kind of how we felt about watching the Villanova men's basketball team last night. It looked like a different set of bodies had snuck in. 94-60, they take care of business against Sacred Heart. And, David, it wasn't just that they scored 94 points. It wasn't just that they hit an avalanche of threes, although that certainly was near the top of the list. It was a combination of everything. This team was down by 4 points at mid-stage of the first half. They proceeded to go on a 27-2 run. They made seven threes during that stretch. Devin Askew and Bryce Lindsay were absolutely on fire. They could not miss. As a team, Villanova ends up with 22 made threes. That's the most in program history. Bryce Lindsay makes 9 3-point shots all by himself. Also the most in program history. It was a night that if you're a Villanova fan, you had to love every single second.
Definitely. And, hey, welcome to the podcast, Devin Askew. It's so great to see you. Great to see you show up. I mean, obviously he's getting healthier, but I mean, I don't know what you say after a 34-point win other than, and they did everything well, other than kudos. Great job. Exciting times for sure.
Indeed. And here's the thing about the way they were able to do it. When you knock down threes in bunches, okay, but it's one thing when a good three-point shooting team is knocking down a bunch of threes. We had started to believe, and I don't think we were the only ones, that this was not a good three-point shooting team because their body of work suggested that to be the fact. I mean, they could not make threes in the exhibition opener against VCU. They had one stretch where they made threes in their second exhibition against Virginia. Outside of that, they were abysmal from the perimeter. And then they could not buy one from anybody not named Bryce Lindsay in the opener against BYU. The rest of the team shot a combined 4 of 23 from three-point range, and they were 4 of 25 against Queens in the contest on Saturday. And from that, you end up at 22 of 43 in a game against Sacred Heart. It's a very weird sport, is it not?
It is, but even when they were missing shots, I think we both agreed they were moving the ball well. They were getting, for the most part, good shots. The other night, they just started falling. And when they start falling in bunches, it looks really good. Let's hope they didn't use up all of the threes against Sacred Heart, and they've saved some for the rest of the season. But
it would have been nice if this came in the BYU game, right?
Exactly. That would have been when you score, what was it? 69 from three, you're gonna win that game most of the time, no matter who the competition is.
That was not great math by you, but we'll forgive you since you have a North Carolina degree and a Georgetown degree. But 22 times 3 is definitely 66.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, I like how the gears were grinding on that one. I'll take that. That's a win for the state school guy right there. But David, let me ask you this: it was a great lead from Jeff Nyberg in the Inquirer, right? He came up with the number of threes attempted in the BYU game, 35, and he said Kevin Willard lamented how many times his team shot the ball from in that loss to BYU. When asked about the 43 three-point field goals attempted on Wednesday night against Sacred Heart, Willard responded simply, "It was the perfect amount." I mean, that's a great lead.
Yeah.
Loved Kevin Willard, at least with the question. Everybody talks about how tough he can be on the media, and I'm sure there will be moments where that toughness rears its head. We've seen him be short at times, but he likes a good question, and when he gets a good question, he engages in the good question, and he's willing to have some fun with it. And I just think that's a great answer. But it is kind of funny how this all ends up working. One night you're lamenting taking 35, the next night you're acting like you're a genius when you shoot 43. It's a weird game.
Hey, a lot of times the difference between a good shot and a bad shot is just whether it goes in. 43 threes and 22 of them go in. Keep shooting it.
The ball movement was great. I mean, that was the one thing. I don't think there was more than 4 or 5 rush shots. In fact, the one guy who did take a rush shot was Devin Askew, who had made virtually everything he took. He finishes the game 7 of 10. He fires a heat check 3 at one stage in the second half. It misses the rim. It hits off the backboard, and he hustled back defensively. And by the time he crossed midcourt, Kevin Willard had already had a sub up off the bench that was heading over to the scores table to get him out of the game. And Askew said the exact right thing afterwards, though. He said that was not the right play for that right moment in the game. That's a sign of a team that seems to be bought in to what their coach is selling.
And yeah, I mean, that's a sign of basketball intelligence. I appreciate Kevin Willard pulling him out of the game. I think everybody watching it probably would have said, "Hey, you've made 7. You deserve a heat check. Everybody deserves a heat check." But no, you got to play within the offense. You got to get the right play at all times because you're not going to be playing Sacred Heart every night. So it's going to have to come in the flow of the offense at all times. So I appreciate sticking to that standard no matter what the score is and how well you've been shooting all night.
The other thing that is impressive right now about what Villanova is doing defensively, second game in a row now where they have taken the opponent's all-conference players and taken them out of the game. Tonight, on Wednesday night, Sacred Heart's 2 best offensive players, their 2 all-conference guys, Connor and Ralph Byer, combined to shoot 7 of 22 from the field. They're making them work for everything. They understand where the opponent wants to go. That's buying into a scouting report. Villanova seems to be very locked in that regard. They're not the best defensive team in the world right now, but at least they're trying to accomplish what the coaches are putting in front of them, which is, that's a good sign. You can build upon everything else.
And I love that they're locking in defensively. If we're going to get a little nitpicky, every game, it seems to be these slow starts. I mean, as you said, they were down 4 midway through the first half. And it's just, you got to lock in from tip because at some point you're going to get yourself in too big of a hole to come back from it. Against this competition now, you can play around a little bit for 10 minutes and still win by 34. But I'd love to see them come out from as soon as the ball's tipped, be ready to play, be locked in defensively, not allow all these straight line drives because that's what was happening in those first 10 minutes. They obviously cleaned it up. They figured out how to cause a little havoc. They were all over the floor. I don't know how many guys were diving on the floor, but you love to see that when guys are putting their bodies on the floor to try and get loose balls. So kudos for them for turning around. Just let's start when there are 20 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah, it's funny. They played 6 halves, right? And they've gotten off to slow starts in 5 of them, you could argue. Maybe not a slow start to the second half in this game, but they weren't they set the bar so high at the end of that first half. And then the one first half they played well was against Queens. They got out to, a 13-1 start. And then they did not answer the bell to start the second half. So yeah, you're right. They gotta figure that out coming out of locker rooms, because that really hurt them against BYU as they dug that deficit, and then they sputtered first 2 or 3 minutes of the second half as well. Deficit got even bigger. They were able to take the lead at one point against the Cougars, but if maybe they didn't have to work so hard to get back into the game, that might have ended up with a different outcome. So that's something to keep an eye on. Another thing to keep an eye on that Villanova will want to maintain, the ball movement. We talked about it in the BYU game. It was a question of, do you want to take that many threes? But you couldn't question the quality of the looks from three-point range that they were getting. The reversals, the extra pass, those were all there against BYU. The ball just didn't go in. Ball went in this time, but it was the same idea. I mean, how many wide open set three-point shots did we see Villanova get in that game against Sacred Heart? And the assist numbers back it up. They made 34 shots, David. They had 28 assists. That is insane.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, if you want to look at ball movement, just look at what that's 6 shots made without an assist. That's amazing. I mean, so you're getting the ball to the right place. You know who I'm really impressed by, honestly? Duke Brennan and Matt Hodge always seem to make the right play. They make the right pass. They make it just seems like they have this innate ability to find open guys. So, but the whole team was on Wednesday. So 28 assists on 34 made shots. You can't get much better than that.
It was good to see Chris Jeffrey back. I mean, he didn't have an overwhelming game, but he was real solid. 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting. Another game where he has 4 assists, and he continues to limit the turnovers on top of those 4 assists. And then Caden Lewis kind of was more of a true point guard in this game. I mean, he got his a little, but 8 assists. He did turn the ball over 4 times. A lot of those though coming when the game was out of reach. And 8 assists for a rookie floor general is a really good sign.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess when you're making shots, you're going to get assists too.
Exactly. You're a good point guard loves a good shooter, and I think I'm gonna back off of what we said last week or on Tuesday. We said that Caden Lewis needed to be the best player on this team. If Bryce Lindsay continues to play like this, I think they can hit their ceiling with Bryce Lindsay as the best player on this team, because he is playing amazing basketball. And I think we both expect him to come down to earth at some point. But so far, he's playing out of his mind. And I think that obviously that's a big if he can continue to play this way. But if he can, I see no reason why this team can't be as good as they are, especially – he's doing it in a variety of ways. Wednesday night, it was his three-point shooting. It was three-point shooting against BYU, but against Queens, he was driving to the basket. He was also making shots. So it's not like he's a one-dimensional player. He's an all-around player. I think, yeah, he keeps playing like this. There's no issues with that.
No, not at all. And I completely agree. You actually were a little bit more on that. You said you thought Lindsay right now was Villanova's best player. You agreed that they probably at their best if Lewis turns into their best player. I think that's still true because of Lewis's upside. And I'm still skeptical whether Lindsay can keep up this type of pace. He doesn't need to, though. I mean, he can be their best player, averaging 20 points a night. Right now, he has blown past that. And as you said, the ability to do a lot of different things, 7 threes in the first half. If you're capable of heating up like that, all of a sudden, defense is going to have to pay attention to you even when you're having an off night, because that is the type of guy that can catch fire at the blink of an eye. And so now, even if you're missing shots, they've got to account for you along that perimeter, and it just frees the floor up for everybody else. That was the big worry for me, was how much were opponents going to be able to clog things up against Villanova, especially opponents with length. We saw that at times from BYU, especially the first half in the opener. Once Lindsay started making shots from the perimeter in the second half, now all of a sudden they had to guard that perimeter a little bit, and now the driving lanes and the offensive rebounds started to open up. That's, I think, that's traditional basketball success. But Lindsay's shot it so well for so long now, even if he's missing his shots, I think they're going to have to play him honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. I mean, he only took one shot that wasn't a three all game. It's nice to see that. Obviously, coming into the game, he was Villanova's best 3-point shooter. He was probably the only guy on the scouting report that coaches were saying, you got to be up on him. But to be able to get off 14 and make 9 of them with the scouting report saying this is their shooter is pretty impressive.
And he breaks a record that had been previously held by some really good players in Villanova history. Here's the guys that had made 8 threes in a game: Darren Hilliard, Allen Ray, Sadiq Bey, and then Chris Jenkins. So you got 3 legit NBA guys, and then Chris Jenkins, who's an icon in college basketball, made arguably the most famous, or at least one of the 3 most famous shots in the history of the sport. So when you're joining a list like that, I think you're okay with it if you're Bryce Lindsay.
Rarefied air. That's a pretty good list to be on. I don't think anybody would complain about being with those guys and surpassing them with 9 threes.
Speaking of lists, a guy who was on a lot of lists in terms of intriguing players to watch this year was Devin Askew. He gets sidelined by the injury in preseason. We're initially hearing that he's not going to come back until December. He's able to fight his way back much earlier. He's out there during the opener. It does not go well. We mentioned that. Critical within reason, understanding the circumstances of why Askew struggled, but it was a struggle. His plus-minus numbers, it was minus 18 in that game against BYU. It was not pretty for him, but he was just trying to be out there for his team. He got a little bit better against Queens. Finally, we saw what Devin Askew is capable of in that game against Sacred Heart. Again, it's not what he's going to be every single night, but to have this type of ceiling is a big deal for a Villanova team that's going to need more guys to be able to step up and score, especially from the perimeter. And Askew, 7 of 10 from 3, 10 of 13 from the field. He was feeling it as well.
It's an all-around great game for him. Like you said, his shooting was great, but also he's got 3 boards, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 2 steals. That's a solid game from Devin Askew. If he does, outside of the shooting, if he does that every night, gets you 3 boards, 3 assists, and 1 turnover with 2 steals, I think that's more than enough for what he can bring to the table. Especially if Bryce Lindsay is playing this well, especially as a Caden Lewis gets more comfortable and we presume gets better and becomes a more efficient scoring and a bigger force as part of the offense. So I think all the other stuff outside of the shooting's nice. Got to love when a guy comes back and he has a game like that. But the other stuff he did was great.
Yes, it was, and that's a really good sign for Villanova. And then you mentioned him in passing, but it's worth pointing out again, hey, there weren't as many offensive rebounds for Duke Brennan to have available out there because the Wildcat shot the ball still so well. He still managed to double-double. And again, the little things, you alluded to it. The pick and roll game, his dive ability to the bucket, his ability to keep balls alive and tip, deflect, make guys work, take a different angle. He does just a little bit of everything. Not all of it will show up in a stat sheet.
Oh, yeah. 10 and 11. Hey, come on, Duke. Only 11 rebounds. That's nothing. Just get out of here with 11 rebounds. No, to get double-double in a game like this where there are only 60 missed shots, yeah, you picked up 1/6 of the missed shots. That's pretty impressive. And 6 boards on, what's that? My math's so bad right now. 28 missed shots for Villanova. He gets 6 of them back.
You're going to have to give back your diplomas if you keep putting on math displays like this.
I went to law school. I did not go to math school, okay? I'm a lawyer. I'm not a mathematician. I have calculators.
You're right, though. I can do that math. That's up near 25% of the offensive rebound opportunity. So that's off the charts offensive board efficiency from Brennan. And we've seen that. That's just been his MO. And if he can continue to do that, huge deal for Villanova. Another thing that would be ideal for Villanova, we mentioned that they get Chris Jeffrey back, but they were without another body. Kabari does not play. And Kevin Willard had something to say about that. He did not mention names, but he had something to say about that in his post-game press conference that drew a lot of attention. The audio and video courtesy of Villanova University's YouTube account.
healthy, and they need to realize that they need to practice because it's important to the team. I don't think kids don't realize that. We have someone out with their toe hurts.
Look at the reaction to the guys on the side of Kevin Willard. There were fans out there that were upset about this from Kevin Willard. But watch the moment where he talks about the toe, and then watch Bryce Lindsay and Devin Askew on the side.
Their toe hurts.
Come on, that's good. A, they both loved that. They loved every second of that. There's no strife inside that locker room whatsoever. And B, the thing about Kevin Willard is, sometimes does he try to make points through the media? He certainly does. Is that okay, though, in certain circumstances? It is when your players are buying in like that. We don't know what's going on in that locker room. And maybe he was just giving them a little grief. Maybe it had been a recurring joke. Maybe it is where he's trying to say, hey, there's a difference between injury and being hurt. And there's a big difference there. When you're hurt, you got to find a way to get out there. When you're injured, that's when we'll figure it out. But whatever it was, if he was saying something out of school, the players would not have reacted like that. That was a genuine, they enjoyed that.
Exactly. I mean, I think it was a little tongue in cheek. It's probably a running joke in practice that, hey, your toe hurts, you can't get out here. But I don't think there was anything. There was no ill will or anything like that. I don't think Kapari is going to take it as some shot across the bow.
No, I don't think so. And again, it's a different style of leadership. There's no doubt about it. I think a lot of Villanova fans, and I'm one of them, got used to Jay Wright. And I don't think there's a better representative you could possibly have for your basketball program or, for a school than Jay Wright. But Jay Wright has retired, so you got to find something different. You had Kyle Neptune, who, I feel bad for Kyle Neptune because it was a really tough spot. It was first head coaching job, but I thought in a lot of ways was trying to do a Jay Wright impersonation. And as he tried to start to become himself, it was really too late at that point. He wasn't getting the results. You got to be genuine in that regard. And he wasn't. I mean, he was just trying to carry on what Jay Wright has built. Kevin Willard's his own guy. He's got a lot of influences. His dad was a coach. Rick Pitino was his mentor. He's got a lot of smart guys that he's learned from, but he's uniquely his own. He's an East Coast, Northeast guy, and he's got a lot to say, and he's not afraid to mix it up. And to me, I find it quite refreshing. We'll see what happens the first time he goes off on somebody. I'm hoping it's not me at a press conference, but I enjoy him. I'm never quite sure what he's going to say next, and I think that makes it more fun to follow the team.
It's genuine. And in this new era of college basketball, I don't think you can be as maybe Jay wasn't authoritarian, but you can't be that traditional.
Early Jay was.
Yeah.
Early Jay was. Yeah, you're right.
But you can't be that traditional coach anymore, especially not with the transfer portal being what it is, NIL being what it is. You have to win these guys over. And the only way to do that is to be a genuine person because you can see through a guy who's just fake. So I appreciate that. He had a fun moment. His players enjoyed it. There wasn't anything super concerning about what he said.
The funny thing, remember what Kane Lewis told us at Media Day, where he said, hey, look, I knew what I was getting into when we asked the differences between Kevin Willard, the recruiter, and Kevin Willard, the coach. He said, look, I saw it when he was at Maryland. I understood that there was going to be some psycho stuff that comes out from time to time. So he's going to cuss you out from time to time. But you learn what brings that upon. And then I asked him, well, do you like being coached like that? And he said, yes, I don't necessarily like the cuss outs, but I understand why they come. And I know what I'm supposed to do to try to avoid them. And they're always for legitimate purposes. Again, it just feels like a guy that kind of has his thumb on the pulse of what's going on inside that locker room. It's his team. I mean, he brought him in. He was able to build this thing pretty much from scratch. So he should have his thumb on the pulse of the team. But it feels like he's pushing some good buttons right now. And I'm interested to see what this team can turn into. If you look at what they've been so far, could they have gotten one against BYU? Yes. Were they supposed to? No, they were not. And they stormed back to put themselves in position to get it. They weren't great defensively against Queens, but they were really good on offense. And then they were much better defensively tonight and just shot on Wednesday night. I don't know why I think the game was tonight. It was so much fun. I want to just keep reliving it. But it was so good offensively on Wednesday night and much better defensively. That is something as a Villanova fan, he's getting them better every single time. You got to like.
Oh, yes, for sure. Gotta love the progress of the team. Kevin Willard, obviously, it takes a little time when you're playing games to get into the flow of what he wants to do. It takes time for any coach to do that. We're working on the fly right now. They've done exactly what they were supposed to do. Probably looked a little better than either one of us thought they would against BYU. So I think all in all, this is where the team should be. They're probably a little ahead of schedule from where I thought they would be at this point in the season.
Loving it, David. Appreciate it. Always fun. We're going to have to shift topics now. We'll bring in the newest member of our Holy Nova family, former women's basketball player Lauren Carra will join us to talk about a disappointing night for Denise Dillon's women's team. But David, have a good night. Enjoy the game against Duquesne this weekend. We'll talk next week.
See you guys.
And we welcome in the newest member of the Holy Nova family. She is our women's basketball analyst, former basketball player at the University of Delaware. She played on a team that went to the Sweet 16, 2 NCAA tournaments. She also was teammates with the great Elena Deladon. Lauren Carra has been kind enough to join us. Lauren, how did we ever talk you into doing this?
Well, my last run with you with the University of Delaware women's basketball didn't go too bad, so I figured why not give it another shot.
That's right. You were a broadcaster back in the day as well. We did some CAA games together also, so this is going to be fun. Unfortunately, it's not the most fun topic to discuss in your first appearance on the show. Heartbreaking loss tonight for Villanova. Just a game where it was Murphy's Law in the fourth quarter. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It wiped out what was a really solid first three quarters from Denise Dillon's team. You watched it like a hawk. What do you think went awry in that final quarter?
I think we saw in the fourth quarter, Villanova went 8 minutes and some seconds without scoring a field goal. Aside from the times that they got to the line, we did not see a field goal in those last 8 minutes of the game. And when you play a team that is as solid as Princeton, fundamentally so well coached, you can't have that run in a game like this with a team who already showed against Georgia Tech that they are they're definitely a fourth quarter team. They came back against Georgia Tech, storming back to win the game. And that's the same thing we saw here tonight.
44 points from Princeton in the second half in this game. More importantly, and maybe more impressively, holding the Villanova team to just 11 in the fourth quarter. It's the second game now we have seen in the early portion of the season where the Wildcats stubbed their toe in a fourth quarter. The loss to Fairfield, they didn't play well in the first quarter, but they played well enough in the second and third quarters where it looked like they were going to be able to get through it and beat the Stags. And then Jasmine Bosco gets into some foul trouble. She's limited in the fourth quarter. They can't get over the hump. No foul trouble this time for Bosco, although Danae Carter had to deal with a little bit of foul trouble in the game. She did stay out there, but finishes with 4, but not a great shooting night from Bosco. She finishes 5 of 15 from the field. Princeton made her life difficult. What did you see him doing to try to take away Villanova's best player?
Well, towards the end of the game, we saw Princeton jump out into a 1-2-2 3/4 court press. That seemed to slow Villanova down, and that's what the point of the press is, to slow you down offensively. And it took some time off the clock for Villanova. And at times they weren't getting into those offensive sets, the offensive rhythm that we saw in the first and second quarter. And early in the third quarter, too, was probably the most impressive ball movement, something that you would take and show your team how you want to move the basketball. Those were the types of plays that we saw coming from Villanova in the beginning of that third quarter when they were up 12, 13 points. And then when that 1-2-2 3/4 court press came out, it slowed them down. It took them out of that offensive flow that we saw. And Bosco was involved in that fourth quarter run. Unfortunately, the shots that she usually makes for Villanova were not falling the way that they usually do.
How about the 3 from Bender at essentially the buzzer, 5 seconds to go? Was that the look they were looking for, you think, on that final possession to to try to get themselves back into the game down by 5. They call timeout with 12 seconds to go. They don't get the shot off till 5. Was that Princeton's defense that making life difficult on Villanova?
I think it was. It looked like Princeton stepped it up a little bit there with their defensive intensity, especially once they took over the lead towards the end of the game there. We saw that Princeton picked it up defensively for sure. They were all over the floor. They're diving for loose balls, and the intensity and the shift and the momentum kind of went towards Princeton's side. And the shooter, Bender, had a hand in her face. So that would have been a difficult contested shot if she was to make that.
You look at how this game unfolds. We mentioned Bosco's stats, and you see the freshman Henry scores 13. That's a really good sign. She has a ton of upside. Denise Dillon telling us before the season how much she likes Henry and what she might be able to do. But another person that you were really relying on who's trying to work her way back from injury is Kylie Watson. And Watson is limited to just 5 points. She only takes 4 shots. It's a little bit of a struggle right now for Watson. You can tell she is not moving anywhere near as well as she did during her time at Notre Dame before the injury. You wonder if she'll be able to get it back in the second half of the season, but it's a legit concern right now because Villanova loves to spread the floor, that motion offense, the ball movement, and you thought the combination of Watson and Carter, they could do so many different dynamic things off of it, but it changes if Watson isn't her usual self out there. You've been a player, you've been in her shoes. How tough is it when you don't have that extra gear there to go to?
It's very tough. And right now for her, it could just be building that stamina up and getting comfortable back into the rhythm of the game. And for McCurry, for her to come in that second half, starting over Watson, she was making all of the right reads within that Villanova offense. She was hitting cutters on backdoor passes. She's getting offensive and defensive rebounds. She's hitting shots. Those are all the things that Villanova needs right now until Watson is back 100% and playing to the ability that we saw her play at when she was at Notre Dame.
The funny thing is I really like Bryn McCurry and what she brings to the table, the intangibles. It is kind of funny, though, isn't it, Lauren? She almost looks like somebody from medieval times, ready to go to battle in a joust. She has so much armor on. She's battled through some injuries over the course of her career as well. But the toughness plays and the jolt that she seems to bring when she's out there. And I think that's why Denise Dillon goes to her to start the second half with Watson struggling a little bit. And you just see it does seem like an energy comes to the team. How important is that when you have that player that can kind of provide that spark when you need it?
It's huge. And in a game against Princeton, like a team like Princeton, especially, that's so fundamentally sound, you need to make sure that everything you're doing matches their intensity level and also their play. And McCurry is one of those players that is just, as you said, she does all the intangibles. She's diving on the floor. She's getting loose. She's going after loose balls. She's in there for rebounds. She's doing all of the little things that coaches love to see, and that she'll do anything on the floor that's going to make her team better.
So what's the next step now for Denise Dillon and her team? This wasn't necessarily what they had in mind coming into the year. Now, people mentioned that, they don't play maybe the toughest non-conference schedule, but they do play some really tough non-conference mid-major games, Fairfield and Princeton. The games, though, that you want to win, but both of those are expected to be NCAA tournament teams. You're in both of those games. You can't hold leads down the stretch and you end up losing both. Those aren't great for the Big East, obviously. It's not good when you're talking about the at-large conversation, and they're not going to be good for Villanova's resume come the end of the year. Those are the type of teams, if you win, they're bonuses, but when you lose, the committee's still going to ding you because the committee has proven they don't have a ton of respect for mid-major programs. So now you got 2 losses already in your first 4 games. Where do you go from here if you're Denise Dillon? What do you think the message is to the team?
I think you could continue building. I mean, to look at the 2 teams that Villanova has now lost to. You have a Princeton team that was picked to finish first in the Ivy League this year with multiple players in double digits, multiple all-conference players on that team. Then you have a team in Fairfield who, again, is another team that's looking like they're going to finish first in the Metro, and another team, player of the week on their team as well, multiple players with all conference honors on their team. So those 2 teams are both going to be probably automatic bids, if not part of the selection come NCAA tournament time. So when you look back at these two losses, I don't know how much they're going to hurt Villanova in the long run, especially if they finish at the top of their league and they win out their conference. I don't know how much these two losses are going to hurt them. If anything, with how much Villanova has had to go through adversity in these two games and face having had leads and trying to come back or trying to win the game at the end, having to face that adversity may actually benefit them at the end of the year.
It's definitely going to be something that will help them come Big East play. And we saw that for Villanova last year as well, where they got off to a really slow start, up and down non-conference. And then, they lost that weird game against Seton Hall on the shot where the girl flipped it up over her head and it went in. And that was kind of the pivot point for the season for the Wildcats. And they were able to get things turned around, but they had dug themselves such a hole that even though they I think, exceeded expectations in the Big East, they weren't a part of the conversation for the NCAA at large with the committee. They want to be part of that conversation. They feel like they have the pieces in place to get back there. But now, at least to me, it feels like they're out of leeway in non-conference play. They got to kind of run the table and then do well in the Big East. I don't think you have to finish second if you can run the table from here out in non-conference play. But if you lose any more games, I think second is going to become the benchmark. And at the minimum, you're going to have to be top three in the Big East, it feels like, to get to March.
Yeah, and I think that's something Villanova can do with the pieces that they have in place. And we look at the roster that Villanova has, you have freshmen, you have sophomores. Bosco is still only a sophomore, so she's a young player. You have Henry, who is now out there playing a significant amount of time. You have other freshmen that are in the mix here for Villanova. So they're still getting their legs underneath them. And I think as Villanova goes here, we're only going to see them get better and better with the chemistry right now that Bosco and Henry are playing with. And when they are out on the court and they're in transition and they're in the fast break, we see how well those two play together and how they feed off of each other. Henry's defensive play itself, when she's ready and she's in a defensive stance and she's up on the ball, she is a tough defensive player. And again, very young with these two players here that are part of the main components for Villanova. I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on.
You went toe-to-toe many, many times with Denise Dillon during your playing career. I think you came out with many more wins than losses, but you always talked about how much respect you had for Dillon, how difficult her teams were to prepare for. And I know one of the things that you said always made her most difficult was length. Boy, Henry's got lots of length, doesn't she, out there?
She really does. And as only a freshman, for how composed she is out on the court right now, the reads that she's making, the defensive, she's causing havoc on the defensive end of the floor for sure. I mean, tonight she hits a three, and then on the other end of the floor, she tips a ball, a pass, and it's Villanova basketball, and they're going back in transition. The little things that she's also able to do, not only put the ball in the basket, but on the defensive end, she's a huge component for them.
Here's a big question, though, and I don't think there's an easy answer because Denise Dillon's a really good coach. She would have come up with it, and her staff is on top of it. They would have figured it out by now if there was an easy solution, but it's certainly at the top of everybody's tongues. How do they get a little bit more fluid in the half-court offense? Denise Dillon said after the Fairfield game, the movement is there. The energy and the shot selection maybe and the assertiveness from anybody not named Jasmine Bosco isn't. What did you notice tonight in the half court? How do they get that going? Because it feels like to me that's where Villanova's always had so much success in the past, and they're struggling a little bit right now.
They seem to be, and I think we saw the best of Villanova's offense at the beginning of the third quarter. What I had talked about a little bit earlier, we saw a different bit of a lineup in there. Watson was on the bench to start the third, and McCurry was in there to start the third. So we saw a little bit of a different lineup, but that lineup seemed to move without the basketball better than we saw the team that started the game. It seemed as though it was kind of stand around and watch instead of constantly moving, as most of the teams that I have seen Denise Dillon have on the floor, they're constantly moving. They're setting screens away from the ball. They're setting screens on the ball. You're getting hit every which way with the screen. Someone's moving. And that's not the fluid motion of that offense that we're seeing right now.
And the other thing that's interesting to kind of keep an eye on, the two transfers. We've talked about Watson it's a slow start. I mean, there's a long way to go, and she's coming off of a major injury, but it is a slower start than she was expecting. And she was open about that coming in. She said it has been a process working back. I still don't feel like I'm all the way back, but I'm close. And close get you some plays. You see it in flashes. You're just not seeing it with the consistency that Villanova was hoping for. And then Jones, the transfer sharpshooter, she has in the gym range. Denise Dillon said she can make threes from anywhere. She's just not getting a lot of looks right now. Only 3 3-point shots attempted. She only makes one. They got to get her going. In the 2 losses, she's been virtual non-factors. They need her to be more of a factor. They want her to be too. It's not just something where, oh, we got to get the ball to Jones. They want her involved. They're at their best when she's out there.
Yeah, and I think, again, all the different pieces that are coming together here, Jones with Watson, you have Henry on the floor as well. The Villanova offense is not an easy offense. It's constantly moving. You're constantly having to make reads off of what someone else is doing on the floor or what the defense is doing. So this is not an easy offense to pick up, and certainly not an easy offense to defend either, being on that side. But for a freshman or a transfer coming in, this is a different style of basketball, and it may take a little while for the transfers and the freshmen to pick up on what it is and what the options are that come off of the offense that Villanova runs.
It's such a good point. Getting the opportunity to do games with Harry in the past, he'll talk about that all the time of, we're watching one thing and he's just kind of seeing it in a completely different way, where the freshman will get the ball and make what seems like a decent pass. And he'll explain why it's actually the completely wrong pass, because we're trying to do this to set up that, to set up this. And then you're always trying to think 2-3 steps ahead, or get the defense doing one thing so you can take advantage of another. It's the options. It's the beauty of the offense. It's why when it's clicking, it's so pretty, but it's also why at times it has been difficult, and why he was worried that the offense might become obsolete in the era of the portal, because it's hard to get people to understand and it's hard to build that synergy quickly. How does Villanova fast forward that, do you think, in your mind? How do they get that synergy going quicker or sooner rather than later?
I think games like this against a team like Princeton, who is going to be there at the end of the season in an NCAA tournament situation, I think that the more competitive teams they play, the better that this offense is going to get in the long run. I mean, they're going to be in the gym, they're going to be practicing, they're going to be watching film, but it's the pieces that they need to put together as far as the chemistry. And again, making the reads off of this type of offense is not an easy thing to do. So getting in the film room and just constantly getting those reps and the repetitions with this offense is probably going to be the most important thing.
Lauren, we have been missing the player's perspective throughout this entire time on Holy Nova. We got David with his coaching brain, his logistics brain, his legal brain, whatever it is that I bring to the table. I still haven't quite figured that out yet, but whatever it is, it certainly isn't a player's perspective, as it takes me an hour and a half to run the 100-yard dash. So it's very good to have that mindset, and we very much are looking forward to you making many contributions with us here on Holy Nova.
I am too, Matt.
Good stuff. Lauren Carra. That'll do it for this edition of Holy Nova. For David White, I'm Matt Janus. Thanks so much for being with us. We will talk to you next Tuesday.